The field is shrinking, but the issues are growing for the Republican presidential candidates. 5 clashed on stage in the state of Florida for the first time since war broke out in the Middle East.
The challenge remains the same, though, for the candidates stand out as a possible alternative to former President Trump. KTVU political reporter Greg Lee joins us now to recap the night. And Greg, Donald Trump skipped this one, too.
Yeah, Julie, Mike, the former president sticking to his strategy, which is to watch his poll numbers grow while staying away from the debate stage. The 5 candidates tonight spent little time on the frontrunner and instead tried to make their own case to voters. 5 Republican presidential hopefuls took the stage in Miami for the 3rd GOP primary debate. Absent again, former President Trump, who leads the crowded field by more than 40 points in the polls.
Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country.
He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing.
Mr. Trump provided counter-programming with a rally in nearby Hialeah, Florida. He railed on the criminal cases against him and mocked the rest of the field.
One of the dumber ones, he doesn't have the courage to stand up. Well, listen, I'm standing in front of tens of thousands of people right now, and it's on television. That's a hell of a lot harder to do than a debate.
Foreign policy, a major topic in this debate as war rages between Israel and Hamas.
I would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder.
Congress is mulling President Biden's funding request for Israel and Ukraine. Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy continued to stand out in his calls to end U.S. support to Ukraine.
This thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy.
Tempers flared between Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley over the issue of TikTok.
In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my daughter out of your voice.
Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy answer.
In a rebuke of abortion bans and limits, voters handed Republicans major losses in Ohio, Kentucky, and Virginia on Tuesday. The candidates working to reframe their positions.
We're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different.
I would challenge both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest.
Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty for getting an abortion. Let's focus on how to save as many babies as we can and support as many moms as we can and stop the judgment.
Now, the clock is ticking for these candidates to chip into Trump's lead. We are just over 2 months from the Iowa caucus.
And that'll be here very soon. 3rd Republican debate in the book. St. Mary's College political scientist Corey Cook with us tonight. Did someone on that stage win this one, or do you think Donald Trump won it by just not being there, Corey?
He won it by not being there, for certain. Every time he doesn't show up for debate, his poll numbers improve. And clearly what we saw tonight was effectively the second string competing for who can be in place in case something goes wrong with the Trump campaign. But they're right now competing to be the standby candidate rather than really competing with the frontrunner.
Okay, a big issue tonight, foreign policy. Did any of those candidates on stage tonight stand out or separate themselves from the rest, strike a chord with voters when it comes to the issue of foreign policy?
Well, I think Ambassador Nikki Haley is the strongest on foreign policy issues. I think she stood out. At the same time, I think the clip that people are going to be showing tonight is the one that got personal and feisty, and one of my students texted me and said that it was, you know, a bad comedy show tonight. And I think those are the focus on TikTok and things like that is what distracts from a substantive policy debate. And so while this is probably the most substantive of the 3 nights, I think what it's going to be remembered for is the vitriol and, frankly, a lot of the urgency that the candidates are feeling to try to break through.
Just following up on that, when you said they got nasty and vitriol, did one person hurt themselves more on stage tonight by being particularly nasty?
Well, I think Ramaswamy is having a difficult time being likable. And to be blunt, in the first debate, I think the overall sense was he was, you know, the most forceful, but also the least likable. In the second debate, he went out of his way to try to be a little bit more calm, a little bit more positive. That certainly changed tonight, and he was sort of back to the original And I don't think it works very well for him.
Corey, Republicans are taking a hard look at their abortion stance and policies in the light of what happened last night on election night. Do you see this as being an ongoing issue into 24, and is it a liability for the GOP?
Oh, there's no question about that. I think if you look at the election results last night, and you're talking about purple to red states having Democrats, obviously holding the governorship in Kentucky is a huge achievement. Gains in New Jersey, gains in the Virginia legislature. These were unexpected. I think most people thought that Republicans could take control of those chambers. To lose seats was a bit astonishing, but this is consistent with what we've seen in other races since 2022 and certainly since 2020. And so I think very clearly Republicans are worried that that is an issue that's going to drag the party down. And I think very concerned that when you have President Trump on the ballot, being responsible for the Supreme Court being in place that ruled on the Dobbs decision, that it'll be difficult to run away from that issue.
So you talk about last night's debate being worrisome for Republicans. One could argue for Democrats. There's still a year. Right, and a lot can happen. And there's a lot of attention on the economy in the United States
for
and
sure.
where we're going to be a year from now. Is that worrisome, you think, for the Democratic Party?
For sure. I mean, I think what we're talking about tonight is, it's getting the old Yogi Berra quote, right? It's getting late early. It's getting late early in the Republican primary. The first caucuses are in 2 months. The election will effectively be over, the primary, in about 4 months, right? We get to Super Tuesday, and effectively we'll know who the candidate is by then. So the urgency that you saw tonight was trying to break through in this very shortened time horizon. But to your point, the general election's a year from now, and certainly the polls that we've seen over the last few weeks are very concerning for Democrats, that Joe Biden is deeply unpopular, and the economy that is driving much of the voters' concerns is going to be a noose around his neck right now.
Well, looking ahead to the next debate, what should we expect?
Well, I think what we're going to see is probably the front runner avoid the debate, and I think benefit from not being part of that. I think you're likely to see the candidate pool winnow further. I think effectively we've seen it come down to Governor DeSantis and Nikki Haley as the two that have emerged as the alternatives. I think you'll probably see the other candidates, again, swinging a little bit harder, but those candidates emerging as the alternative to President Trump.
All right. Corey Cook, always a pleasure. Appreciate you coming in studio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks,
of course.
Corey.
The Biden campaign responded to tonight's debate, saying in a statement, normally, after you lose, you take a moment to reflect and course correct. But in Donald Trump's MAGA Republican Party, apparently you doubled down on the same extreme agenda that was soundly rejected last night in elections across the country.